Hey, welcome back everybody. We are going to make a Hugelkulture bed today. So stick around. If you don't know what that is, it's a wood core bed, and the idea is to maximize moisture retention inside of it by making the core of the bed wood. So we'll show you how to make a Hugelkulture bed, things you need to think about, and it should be a fun experiment to watch over the next couple years. Stick around. Alright, so this mess right here is a Hugelkulture bed that I made maybe 2 years ago. It's kind of quickly thrown together with some sumac wood that I had, and then we poured on top of that some compost that was largely rotting melons, just to kind of let it sit, and then covered it with leaves and horse manure. And it's done pretty well. I haven't really seeded into it. You can see obviously at some point I had red Russian kale seeded into it. I've been putting peach pits and stuff in it, but they don't look like they've been coming up. We've had garlic in here before, but you can see the grass is kind of taking over. And we're gonna kind of join this together with a problem that we have that we are gonna turn into a solution, which is this stuff and this stuff. All right, so when we were building the pond, we had to clear out, in order for the excavator to get down and around, and we had to clear out some cedars. I just dumped all the cedars here to make biochar with them, have them dry out eventually. And I've been kind of making biochar quite a bit and have barely been denting this. And the thought of having to go through and do all of this is biochar again, that's another couple days. It's not something that has me extremely motivated to go do it, and I don't really need that much biochar. So I think what we're gonna do is actually make a Hugelkulture bed with this. And at the same time, if you guys know Poppy from Poppy's Tours, it's my father-in-law, he had a big tree that had to come down because it was in his septic. We took it down. He did like 99% of the work, but I went over with a chainsaw to help him finish it off. And he was going to throw all this out, and I said I'll take it. So I was going to take it and make biochar with it, but again, the same thing. The idea of spending another couple days doing biochar with this isn't something that I really want to do. I'm kind of getting a little bit ready for the off season, and I'd like a quick and dirty solution to this as well. Now at the same time, my sister has a horse farm that she's just kind of started up, and I've been taking her horse manure. So this is 2 trailer loads of horse manure, roughly 10 yards of horse manure, and I'm getting another load today. So I like to kind of help them out and take their manure. And I was going to make compost with this and the leaf bags and the biochar, and I'll still do that, but I was going to make a giant compost pile. But then I didn't want it sitting here because I don't want any rain leachate to be wasted, and even worse, follow into the artesian well overflow there and get into water. You know, that's the exact opposite of what permacultures are trying to do. Prevent, manure leachate runoff getting into our water systems. So I was gonna build a kind of on contour berm here with these leaf bags to capture that runoff and kind of store it in the carbon before it runs off. But then I ran into this brush pile that I kind of had forgotten about, and I thought, well, this is already basically spread out on contour, and my goodness, does that ever look like the start of a Hugelkulture bed. So I think we are going to put a walkway in here on the back side of this shed. We'll put a Hugelkulture kind of on contour. Now, I don't typically like Hugelkulture swales that are storing a whole bunch of water because they can run off and carry the whole swale down because, wood floats. So a bunch of water sitting against the Hugel swale will lift the Hugel swale up and, cause it to run downhill. This area, while it'll be on contour, there's not a lot of catchment area, so it's not going to hold a lot of water. Probably like no water at all. So this will just be an on contour bed, an on contour Hugelkulture bed, and we'll use the manure to mix in with the carbon. We'll talk about that in a sec, and then we'll put the leaves on as well, and we'll also do like a biochar compost pile at the same time. But we're going to do a Hugelkulture bed here. Okay, so you may be asking, what's a Hugelkulture mound and why do I want one, all that sort of stuff. The short answer is that it's a trendy gimmick that you probably don't want. And I know that's not going to be very popular with a lot of people because, you know, us permaculturists, we love our herb spirals and we love our Hugelkulture beds. My opinion is that both of those things are moderately useful. I think a herb spiral is a good teaching start to talk about different kind of plants and their needs, and then microclimates. I think that's a good idea as a teaching tool. In terms of usefulness, I think it's useful, but I also just think herbs spread around the garden is useful as well. For Hugelkulture mounds, I think that it's something that a lot of people do because it's trendy, and they don't really understand the commitment that they're making when they build one. And the reality is that 99% of Hugelkulture beds will turn into something like this. It'll turn into a little lump on the ground that's covered with grasses and, you know, air quote, weeds. And it will be moderately productive, but probably not as productive if you just went out and planted stuff. Now, why is that? And the answer is that carbon, especially big logs, just tends to break down really, really slowly. Especially when they're built the way that most people build Hugelkulture mounds, which is basically just stacking wood and then putting leaves and then a little bit of soil and calling it a day. Mulching it and then planting melons or pumpkins into it. And then you get some melons and pumpkins next year and you say, oh, it worked. But for the most part, that bed, it's not going to be a good bed for probably 5 to 10 years. Okay, so why do you want a Hugelkulture bed? The reason why we build Hugelkulture beds is because it has tremendous moisture retention capability. So if you're in a dry climate and you really want to capture as much water and hold it for as long as possible, you know, you get rains. You get a decent amount of rain, but it all comes in like a couple days. Some big rainstorms and then nothing else. Hugelkulture mound can be a really good way for you to store and hold that water. They have amazing water retention capabilities, especially if you're mixing stuff like biochar into it. But remember, because it's a wood core bed and the wood is buried, you're going to be tying up nitrogen in that bed for a very, very long time. So the best way to build a Hugelkulture bed is actually to mix in a high nitrogen source such as manure right into the bed. So there's a couple ways you can build them. Sometimes people actually dig out a hole and bury the wood right into the earth, but Hugelkulture is actually hill culture. That's what the actual translation is. And the way that they were historically built is basically just this: lying brush in a pile and then basically covering it with soil and planting into it, you know, down the road. Now we can speed the process of how fast this breaks down by putting manure all through it and letting the rains wash the manure down and fill in all the interspaces between all the wood. So this is something that you kind of will set up once and then you'll top it up after a little while because the rains will bring the manure down and kind of, you know, make all these porous cavities, kind of try to fill them in, but then you got to top it back up and you kind of keep doing that. So we're going to kind of do that. It'll be a good area for us to get rid of brush, and it's a low use spot. So this will be a nice little area to have a little tree tunnel down the road. But this is more of a 5 to 10 year project and not a next year project. I think that basically is what people have a problem with, is they have expectations of their Hugelkulture mound that it's going to be productive right away, and it's really a long-term investment. So if you built one and it's kind of not working out, you know, don't destroy it, don't get rid of it. Stick with it, because as that wood breaks down, it will become a very productive bed down the road. But yeah, it's more of a 10-year thing, not a 1 or 2 year thing. Okay, so we got our third load of manure in and added some brush here and put the manure on top. And now we're going to kind of simulate, well, it's raining now, but we'll simulate a lot of rain, and we'll kind of go around and kind of just vibrate the pile and shake it and get that manure settling down and filling the interspaces, and then we'll fill it back again. And this is going to be a long-term thing. It'll probably be over the next month or so that I'll keep doing this. So just constantly keep adding more on to fill in those interspaces. Alright, so that's basically, I think, what I'm going to do for today. I'll come back here and add some more manure as we go. It was actually somewhat easier to put the pitchfork into the pile and rake it up and down and kind of vibrate it that way. That was easier. I got quite a bit of it to fall down that way, and then backfilled it some more, and I think we're good there. I think it looks great. It's functional as well. Trapping any nutrient that wants to run off my land, so that's very, very good, very functional. And 10 years from now, maybe there'll be some giant cherry trees in there or something. So thanks for watching, and we'll do updates of this Hugelkulture bed on contour in the future.